if I can find Walt Wager. There you are. And are you ready to go?
I believe
Walt.
so.
Okay, you're on, Walt.
Okay.
Thank you so
Um,
much.
so uh, when I agreed to do this, I sent a couple different demonstrations that I might do. And the one that was chosen was a spiral finial that I make and put on some pieces. And we have a couple pictures of the pieces online. If we can share a screen for a second.
Yeah, you've got somebody there doing that for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a piece. This is, what it looks like on a piece. And then there's another picture. Go ahead to the next one. Oops, we have another. Different sharing window. There we go. Oops, disappeared.
It's there now.
It's there?
Yeah, we
Okay.
see it.
A box with a finial on it, and then there's
Yep.
another box on another picture, and then we'll come back and I'll be able to see what you all see.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yep.
that's what we're going to do. Of course, this is about you don't make one of these. I don't make one of these in 1 hour. So I've staged it, and I'll go as quickly as I can as I talk through it on a piece. I'm going to make one about this size, and that's about 1 3/4 inches in diameter. And what I'm using for wood today is these are baseball bat cutoffs. You can get them off Etsy, and they're good for lots of different things. So I started out watching Stuart Mortimer make these spiral forms, and excuse me.
Somebody's talking, but I can't see who.
I just got them. We just had
Okay.
some people talking in the background, Walt.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
So anyhow, Stuart Mortimer makes these spiral hollow forms, and I watched him maybe 3 times and went on a Norwegian cruise and watched him there, and started making little Christmas ornaments, things like this, on spiral hollow forms. So that leads into, basically these are done the same way, except that there's an extra step in making one of these because, well, I'll show you. So I'm going to, by the way, I'm in a friend's shop. This is not my shop. This is a great shop. He's got this robust American Beauty lathe, and it's a real pleasure to work here. So Tom Kinney is my helper today, and it's his shop, so I better behave.
Don't break anything.
I'm trying not to.
And just a note, Walt, you have more than an hour. You can go an hour and a half or so. Yeah, you're not restricted to an hour on our behalf. And maybe you have something to do in an hour.
I figure it takes about 4 hours to finish one of these, but I'll get. So I'm going to start just by doing this basic shape. I call it like a teardrop. Sometimes I speed a little bit and I'll smooth it off with a negative rate scraper. And I'm going to leave a fair amount of wood on this side because I have to support it while I cut it and hollow it. So that's the basic shape that the finial will be in. And my next step is to drill a hole down here to help hollow this. So let me just kind of refer to this purple one again, just to kind of give you an idea where I'm going with this. Because after I hollowed, I turned it around. And so I'm going to drill a half-inch hole. And I've already marked the tape. I've got this pretty well. I've made a number of these, so I know that that's about how far I can go with it. And if you look at the top view, you can see that there's plenty of wood around the hole, so that when I get to hollowing it, I've got some support down here. Anybody has any questions at any time, please just holler and speak
up. Is that ash wood? You said it was a baseball bat cutoff. Is that ash?
This place uses maple,
okay,
birch, and ash. This piece is I don't believe it's ash. I believe it's maple, but they're not labeled, so I don't know. I just go with what I've got, and some woods work better than others. Especially the rosewoods and the things like African blackwood turn much nicer than some of the maple and other woods because the grain is so much tighter. Pardon? Did I not lock it? Oh, okay. It's not my lathe. Let's see, what do I do here? For a reason it's not coming on. Oh, there we go. All right. On my 12-inch lathe at home, I have to crank the thing out and then put it back because the throw isn't long enough, but this one probably is. I'm going to throw it in. Now I'm going to drill a second hole for the Fosner bit. And I'm going to come down not quite as far as the first hole. That's going to help me in hollowing it. these can be made any size. They can be much larger if you wanted to do something like a Christmas ornament that hung like this or something like that. But the smaller ones are actually easier to do than the larger ones. I think because there's less bending in the wood. I brought lots of pencils. So the next thing I'm going to do is mark out the bind, where the binds are going to be cut, and I usually start at the thickest point, and then, of course, that pencil just broke, and then move down. Then up. And I need to know where the bottom of that hole is that I drilled so I don't go through the bottom when I'm actually following. Got some sawdust in there.
Hey, Walt, what is the spacing between those lines, those vertical lines you just put in there?
Good question. I don't know, but what I try to do is I make the center line on the thickest diameter, and then come down and make two more lines. So this one actually is a little bit, it probably would be down here and even. So I do 5 lines on the center, and then 2 lines, and then 2 lines, and then 1 last line. But okay. I have to know, as I said, I have to know where the bottom of that 1/2-inch hole is, and it's right here. So this actually, this line isn't going to work for me very well, because if I cut down that far, when I get to that part when cutting these in, I'll show you. But I'll probably cut down just a little bit shy of that bottom line. So that's just the horizontal lines. I mean the vertical, horizontal lines. If I'm going to have 4 binds on this, I need to make 4 lines that are horizontal, and they have to be in the center. I use this as my index. If you had an indexing wheel, you can make you can do 6 binds, 8 binds, but I'm basically going to do 4, and I'm going to sight on this being straight up, come here in the center, and just draw a line, and that line becomes the reference for the next line. Actually, I can do it this way. I can come across on the horizontal. And so I have 4 lines there that are equally spaced. Then I have to connect the dots. And basically, I come up 2 lines and over 1. Then I do the next pair coming down from.
Could you remove your helmet so we can see?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Or just hold your head back a little bit.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
And I'll connect this last one, but I won't cut all the way to that line, as you'll see. Okay. So those are my, will be called my binds. I made a video about this, and it's on YouTube. I just put it up yesterday. But one of the comments, somebody's already watched it, and one of the comments was, well, you could use stripping tape or 1/8-inch tape to make those binds, and they'd be nice and even. I haven't tried that, but I think it's a great idea. So the next thing I'm going to do is cut these in using a mini side grinder and a carbide disc. The disc has carbide on both sides, and it's about 1/8 of an inch thick. And I've made, using some, what do you call that? Corian, a spacer that goes over the disc so that I can only cut down about 1/8 of an inch. So when I put that on there, the spacer will keep it, make it an even depth hole or line in the wood. And the reason that I do this is that it's important when you hollow something after you cut this, that the I got to get my dust collector around here. Stay. That when you're hollowing something, and if it's even, that it won't break. If it's uneven, you're likely to get a thin spot, and that's where it will break. Okay, can we turn that on? The dust collector. Can you hear over top of that?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to take this now, and I'm just going to follow my line. Okay, so that part's done. And next stage is hollowing.
So actually, you're cutting straight lines in that, although they look like they're curving.
Well, they're spiral. They're going from one side over to the other. They're straight. Yeah, they're straight lines basically.
Yeah.
Along those lines that I drew. They're a little bit curved. Yes, the grinder and the disc. The grinder is a mini side grinder. It's made by King Arthur's Tools. It's called the Merlin 2. And the disc that I use, they have a number of different accessories and discs. The disc that I use is called the green disc. It actually is green when you first buy it. I'll add one in there that was green. But at any rate, when I clean them out, if I get pitch or other sawdust stuck in the disc, I clean it out with acetate, and that green disappears immediately. So it's some kind of paint or dye they put on it. But the different coarseness of the disc is by color, and green is the least coarse of the discs.
Hey, Walt, what is the depth of that groove you're cutting there?
The depth
Yes.
is about 1/8 of an inch, roughly 1/8 of an inch.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit more than that. It won't matter a whole lot, but when I hollow, what's going to happen is as I hollow and I hit the bottom of that bind, the sawdust will start coming out of the holes, and I'll know that it's time to stop. So I'm doing the hollowing with a 3/8 inch spindle gouge, and I'm going to set my tool rest so that I'm cutting right in the middle. The other thing I want to do before I get too carried away with it hollowing is I want to cut this bottom down a little bit more, shape it a little bit more. Now you can use hollowing tools. There's, I don't know if I put one out or not. Yeah, I don't know where I put it, but there are those little hollowing tools that Sorby makes. Here's one like this. You can use those in there, but I find that the spindle gouge does a better job of smoothing on the inside rather than this. And you do want the inside to be as smooth as possible because otherwise you have to sand out all the imperfections. And this is easier than sanding. So I'm just checking, I'm getting close to the edge. I just saw sawdust, I don't know if you could see it, but I saw sawdust coming out through the top. And that means that I've got a hole, I can see it right now on the bottom of that bind right there. So I'm done in the middle there. I still have to work up on this edge. And I want to get this done before I do down here, because if this gets too thin, it gets weak. Any questions about that?
No. So yeah, the sawdust coming out is kind of your gauge for thickness.
Exactly. Okay, you can't see it probably, but I can, that there's a hole up here and toward the top.
Yep, we see it.
Okay. I take some air. More than out. A little bit more on top, and then I'll work toward the bottom. I know that this is kind of like watching sanding, but it's something that if you rush too much, you can break them. You turn the dust collector on, Tom. Okay, so it's hollowed down to the bottom of the binds, pretty much from the top to the bottom. I put my finger in, I can feel it's pretty smooth. There's one little lump here I could work on, but for the purpose of the demo, I'm just going to go ahead and go to the next step. So I have a little Allen wrench. I'm going to take the spacer off of the tool. Let's see how to do that. And I'm just going to cut through these areas. Okay, now I'm going to finish carving the top, and then I'm going to turn it around. I'm going to cut it off and make a tenon and turn it around. Oh, I might mention that since it is weaker now because of the binds, you bring tail rest up and just rest it on there so that it's supporting the piece. You have a less chance of breaking it. I'm going to part that off. It's a very short parting tool. To get very close. There we go. Now I'm going to make the tenon that this will fit on this side. And to help me out with that, since I know that the hole is same size as the Fosner bit, I'm just going to use it to mark it so I know the diameter.
Hey, Walt, what size Forstner bit are you using?
No, I can't read it. It's larger than a 1/2 inch and 3/4. Actually, I can read it. It's 3/4. Of course, depending on the size of the piece you're making, you might use a different size Fosner bit. You just want it large enough, the hole in the end large enough so that you can get your tool in there when you're hollowing, and you're not going to be hitting the left side. When you hollow, you always hollow to the side that's coming down, of course, but you want to keep the tool from bouncing on the other side. So I find that, you know, you can do this through a 3/8 inch hole if you really want to, but I don't find it necessary. This is much easier. The other thing that I've found that most of you may already know is that Fosner bits don't like to cut directly into end grain. So that's the reason I drilled the 1/2 inch hole before I did the Fosner bit hole, because then they cut much better if you're cutting into that. And also the if the grain, let's see if I can show this. If this is domed a little bit, the edges catch in evenly. All right, so what I need to do now is make that tenon and a nice square shoulder. This was squared off, a nice square shoulder for this to rest on. And I'll do that with my parting tool. I'll test it out. Pretty close. And I want to see it, and I'll know it's nice and square if I see this part out here not going up and down, you know, nice and square to the center. I have a little wiggle in there, and it's probably because when I put this in the chuck over here, I made the thing when I was at home. Of course, I didn't actually square that off. So if that happens, what you can do Just take a piece of sandpaper, put it on the lathe bed. Just make sure that there's no bumps or lumps underneath it. Okay, blocking your view there. That's not a lot better. But the closer you can get that, we can work with this. This is within tolerance I can work with. The closer you can get that to come straight out, of course, the less problems you'll have later. So I'm going to glue this. And I'm using thick super glue. Some people don't like super glue. They want to use tight bond, and that's fine. If you can get the grain to match. And then just, I'm going to hit a little accelerator, speed things along. Okay, any questions to this point?
No.
All right. So I'm going to cut the bottom down here to be a shape that's consistent with the tenon, with the bottom of the finial. And I'll clean up the top here a little bit using a skew. Small skew. All right. That's good for now. So the next step is cutting down cutting the wood away so that you have the binds that are about the same width as they are thick. This is where someone said if you put a piece of 1/8 inch tape or whatever thickness that your bind would be on the wood, that it would help keep them more even. And I agree that probably would work nicely. But I'm just taking the tool now, and Tom's going to turn the dust collector on. So you want to stop using this tool before it gets too, this particular putter before it gets too aggressive. And there's another adapter for this tool. It's called the quick change adapter. They make them for the automobile finishing industry, I think. And what it is a, You can see that's on the close-up, Tom. It's a little end here that these little sanding discs screw into. And you can buy the sanding discs and adapter at like Harbor Freight. The problem is that the screw that goes into the machine is a proprietary 5mm, I think it is, screw. So King Arthur sells the adapter and it screws into the mini grinder. And this is an 80 grit sanding disc. And I'm going to use it to round off the edges of the binds. And I can get a little bit underneath to round off the bottom. And there are different grits on this you can use to even make it finer. And I can just kind of sand off some of the tool marks. And then the fun begins. And what I mean by that is, it's from here on, it's pretty much handwork. And I start with with a 180 grit strip of sandpaper. And for this, when I'm doing this by hand, I'm going to use the live center. Just to steady this top part. Like I did before, I don't really want to crank it down on there, but I want it so that I don't pull. That top. There isn't enough sand. Don't worry about it. Just you can turn that off. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to do one bind here to show you the different tools that I use for it. And this is the primary tool. And the sandpaper I'm using is Klingspor J-Flex. It's a cloth-backed or cotton cloth-backed sandpaper, and it's very, very flexible, and it lasts a long time. I'm not going to do all the binds. I'm just going to basically do this one. And being from Michigan, you know, when I spent my time in Michigan, reminds me of a story. There are a lot of hunters in Michigan, and it seems that these three hunters went out looking for deer one day, and they spent all day in the woods. And there was a farmer, a doctor, and a priest, and they were all hunting for deer, and all day long in the woods, and never saw any deer. But time to come home, they get up by the truck, and all of a sudden this 12-pointer comes out of the woods, and on the edge of the woods about 500 yards away, or maybe. They all take out their guns and they shoot, and the deer falls. Well, the game warden comes along and checks out to see that they have the proper hunting license and everything, but they're arguing about who hit the deer. So the game warden goes down there and he looks at the deer, and he comes back and he says, "Well, I can tell you who shot the deer." Well, how do you know that? He says, "Well, I know if it was a doctor, he would have shot it in the heart for the quickest kill. And I know if it was the farmer, he would have shot it in the neck to save the best meat." He said it was the priest. And they said, "Well, how do you know that?" He says, "Well, the bullet went in one ear and out the other." It's a standing. What was the question about the type of sandpaper? The question about type of sandpaper? It's Klingspor J-Flex.
Do you buy like a 3-inch roll and then cut off a piece?
Yeah, so you can get sheets. You can get sheets of it or rolls, and just take and since it is a cloth-based paper, I probably won't be able to rip it now. Just cut it in strips like that, and it's called J-Flex. And when I go up to North Carolina or I go to a Klingspor store, they have a break box of surplus or scrap sandpaper, and I go through it and I look for all the J-Flex paper. It comes in all the different grits, and it just works great. So that was 180 grit, and then I'll go down to, you have to label them or you'll forget. This is a 320 grit, but I'll generally go 180, 220, 320. This is nice and fresh, nice and new. So that's the one part that'll round the binds off. Then the other thing that I use, that I make, is you can take that J-Flex paper and take a dowel, and this is like a 3/16 dowel, 1/4-inch dowel, and wrap it around the dowel and make a round stick for the working on the bottom here and getting the parts all even. And you can do this with a barbecue skewer, those wood barbecue skewers you get at the grocery store, and also up at the top, kind of smooth it off where it goes in. And make these sanding sticks out of popsicle sticks or craft sticks, whatever you want to call them, and just glue the sandpaper to the stick, and that allows you to get in and underneath and to get lots of other stuff out. And then finally, I put my fingers on it, I had it a minute ago. There it is. These little, they call them diamond jeweler's files that you can pick up at Harbor Freight. You use those to get in there and do the final part of the finial. And so what I do at this point basically is I'll mark the rope and pencil. I'll mark the chuck where I know if I put it back in, that's my straight point, although I'm not going to really be turning it anymore.
Hey, Walt, the spiral, do you aim at the top of the spiral? Do you aim to finish that where it meets the solid wood on the inside?
You can if you keep cutting, you'll cut down through, and you can take it up as far as you want to. What I try to do on these is when I do the drill is to get it up far enough so that I don't take it up all the way. Now, if I wanted to shape it as a spiral all the way up, I would do that simply with the sanding stick and the little file, which I put down somewhere.
Yeah, but what I was saying is in the inside where you hollowed when you went with the first drill,
right.
Do you try and finish the spiral close to that inside on the same plane? Yes,
I try to, and sometimes I'm more successful than others in getting it just right. But you can, as I was saying, is if I had a thinner sanding stick, I could get down in there right into the bottom and sand that down so that it was part of the bind.
Yeah.
I call this the bind. That's what I think Stuart Mortimer called it. Now, I'm not Stuart Mortimer. I've watched him a number of times, and he's so good at it and so fast, but he uses different tools. He uses the Arbortech now. When I first started, you can cut that initial groove down there using a back saw. I mean, a miter saw, and follow the line. You don't have to have this grinder tool to do this, but since I have the tool,
yeah, I see it flexing already.
It's much faster. Okay. So what I do then is I take it and I'll go watch television with the little sanding stick and work on it until I get it till I get it to what I want it to be. Sometimes I'll come back and use if you have a carving holder, like a Trent Bosch carving holder, you can use that to hold it while you finesse the size and the shape of the binds. But that's basically it. The rest of it is just sanding and finishing, and that takes another couple hours. So I suppose you don't want to watch that.
Probably not. So when you're picking out your wood, probably if you pick out wood with less character, it'll be easier when you flip it around to match the wood grain up and make it more of an invisible joint, correct? If your wood has lots of spalting and stuff, it's going to be obvious when you turn it around and glue it back together that things that it was turned around. You know
Yeah,
what I
you
mean?
can mark it actually before you're going to have, you cut it down pretty close, and you can mark it and line up the marks if you want to match the grain.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
So that's my demo, and I appreciate you all watching. I
Yeah.
have a website. It's waltwager.com. There's a number of other pieces on there that you can look at and see. I don't have a lot of the I don't have a lot of the spiral finial pieces, but there are some Christmas ornaments on there that use the same technique, and you can make lots of different things like that.
Hey, Walt, what's your method for finishing and possibly painting it?
Well, if it's natural wood, and I've done a good job sanding, I use the spray lacquer Krylon, and you can just get it all over there, and then I'll buff off the binds very gently with a Beal system.
Wow.
The other thing that I do, well, here's a couple different ones. I'll show you. I made a bunch of the things thinking I might blow one apart, and that would be I could back up. This is made with white and black ebony. Here's close up, white and black ebony.
Wow.
And this is one where I've taken and I've run the curve all the way up to the top. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Very nice.
This one is a piece of what do you call it? African blackwood, and I haven't cut it down any more than that on the sides, but I could put it back into the lathe and finish it.
So do you normally aim for about 1/8 wall thickness on these?
I think that looks good. Yes. And now, if I'm doing well, here's a piece. This one's not finished yet, but this is some sort of rosewood. I don't know exactly what rosewood it is, but there's the I haven't glued it on yet, but there's the piece, that will be finished.
So I guess you can do the spirals either round like that blue one that you had, or you can leave them rectangular like this one, right?
Sure. You can leave them rectangular. There's no rule they have to be round.
Okay.
Here's a sphere. I do more of these than I do the spiral finials. This has 8 binds on it. 8 binds are actually easier to do than 4 binds because the wood is stronger. You're cutting a smaller piece here. They're harder to sand because you have to get the sandpaper in and out of that little hole. But that actually would become a Christmas ornament. You can make little candle holders, or LED lights go in like a little vase type thing. So that's another thing you can do with it. This also has 8 binds. This is one like I was just making. It's a little further along than the one I was making, and the top I'm going to carve all the way up to the top. So there you have it.
Well, thanks a lot, Walt. That's a really, really nice demo.
Thank you. Great job. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, that's some beautiful work there.
Yeah, you've got a lot farther in 1 hour than I would have guessed. You know, so
Well,
I'm pretty impressed.
on your President's Challenge, it would be fun to see how long people say they take to make one.
Okay, so
How about the whole week?
But I've had lots of practice.
So this will be our President's Challenge next month, is to make something spiral. And if you don't want to do all the cutting, just draw it on the outside of something. But yeah, something spiral, and then keep track of how long it took you. And then
Is there a prize for the longest time?
Send me a link so I can listen to the show.
yeah, and I'll send you a link, Walt, so you can come back and criticize everybody's work. Yeah, so yeah, we really enjoyed having you here today.
Well, great. I look forward to it.
Yeah,
I have one question. It's really about safety, I guess. But if you were to put the spirals in the other direction, is there a danger in the hollowing process, or does it really matter?
It doesn't matter. I'm being right-handed. It's just easier for me to hold the tool in my right hand and move the this way. I suppose I could do it. I mean, I don't think it makes a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, I was just curious if it was really if there was any kind of danger when you're turning, if it makes a difference, because of the direction of the spiral and all that. I wouldn't think so, but I just wanted to ask.
No, one thing I did learn though is that if you have something like a Dremel tool that cuts, that has a a cutter that comes out long, that you want to follow along the line with the climb. It wants to
it kind of tracks.
Well, it's called climb cutting.
Yeah, if you have a Dremel and it has a long thing on it, and you're going to come along like this, it's spinning like this. It's spinning in this direction, and it wants to climb out of the hole as you're cutting. It's very hard. It's very difficult to hold it in the hole. The advantage of this one is that it's spinning straight up and down, and you can follow that line pretty easily.
Hey, Walt, what grit is that disc that you have there?
This is 80.
No, I'm talking about the other one when you started cutting with.
The cutter is just called the green cutter, and I don't know what the
I think it's on the headstock.
I don't know what the grit of it is, but it's the finest that they have.
Okay.
It's the finest. It's the fine. They have a green one, a red one, a yellow one, and a purple one. Purple is the most aggressive, and the green is the least, and the yellow is the next, and the red is the next.
Okay.
But they cost about $50 a piece, so you only need the green one.
Yeah.
I have a whole set. I have 3 new ones that if anybody wants to buy a purple one, a red one, or a yellow one. Yeah.
You make them a deal, $10.
Yeah, really. But yeah, you don't need a whole lot of stuff. The grinder itself is around $300. The mini grinder, and it comes with a bunch of stuff. I mean, it comes with a chainsaw type thing that if you're into making bowls, like carved bowls, it works real well. And it comes with a couple other carbide cutters.
So I have a question. Is there any reason why you wouldn't hollow it first and then cut your grooves in? I mean, hollow it too.
The reason is because if you hollow it first, you're not, unless you're using a caliper all the way through, you're not going to have even wall thickness.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, if you cut it first and you see that stuff come out, you know where the wall thickness is. That's
okay. Okay.
That's all I know.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions or comments? Okay. Well, once again, this will be our challenge for next month. So Write it down. I am going to stop this recording right now.